And as you might know, as you hopefully know, many of us, unless it's your first time here, we're excited that you are. But today is a big day in the life of our church. Today is the Sunday that we celebrate the opportunity to give our multiply offering. And so thank you to everybody who's already given. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you to those who have planned and are giving today. That's a huge, huge thing. And if you're not able to give today or you're just learning about it for the first time, there is any opportunity to give between now and the end of the year. Just mark multiply offering on your offering. But this is a special financial gift that will help the vision of the church, Connect Us Church, continue to come alive. You know, we've got aspects of this building that is an important part of our vision that need to be created and funded and fueled. And also we need to support the right staff people as God continues to raise up the right people for these different roles. And so that's the big stuff. It's the stuff that doesn't happen all the time. And not only will it help that, but our giving, your giving, all of our giving will help align our hearts with the mission. And as you know, in this end of the year season, we've been talking about this idea of leveling up. This is the heart behind what we're doing, this kind of season that God has us in, this idea that we want to level up. If we're going to take our next steps as a church, break through our little growth ceiling, whatever you want to call it, we want to see more people engage with the gospel, to see God transform their life. We have to level up. We got to grow in our skills and in our abilities, and we also have to bring other people along as we do that. And so if you remember a quick recap of where we've been in this series, in week 1, we talked about, yes, we want to grow in our skills and abilities, but we got to develop our character. That's important. Number 2, when we bring other people along with us, we got to know how to handle when they say no. We got to respond well in those situations. And then last week we talked about that in order to live into this vision, we have to do this willingly. It has to be something that we all choose to do. And one of the pictures we talked about last week that led into this idea, God gives us this beautiful picture of a shepherd caring for the flock of sheep. The sheep that God has entrusted to your care, to our care, in our church, in our family, in our workplace, in our neighborhood. Like God has entrusted these people to you, and you are responsible for them, to shepherd them. And then we talked about, that's a big task. But a common theme that's been popping up in the scriptures that we've been looking at in this series is that it's yes, it is a very big task. And with people, it's impossible. But with God, it's what? It's possible. And so today, as we wrap up this season, we wrap up this series, we're going to be looking at the example of the great shepherd. And we all are little shepherds or under shepherds of the great shepherd. And so let me just tell you where this message is going so that you can be prepared for it. At the end of the message today, you will have the opportunity to bring your multiply offering into the offering boxes up here. And as you do that, there's little sheep on the ladder. You can move the sheep up a rung or 2 on the ladder. That represents you leveling up. And then also reach down to the floor or below and bring somebody else up along with you. So I'll explain it all again at the end of the message. I'm just telling you, at the end, be prepared to stand up, and we're going to respond together as a church. And everything we talk about from now till then is a direct line to your response. Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep, and a hired hand. Before we talk about being a good shepherd, which hopefully we all want to be a good shepherd, we have to talk about what a hired hand is. hired hand, or the King James calls him a hireling. The ESV calls him a hired hand. It's the opposite of a good shepherd. We're going to be calling him the bad shepherd today. And here's what Jesus calls a bad shepherd. A bad shepherd will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, and he isn't their shepherd. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. But I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me. So if we want to be good shepherds, we got to follow the example of the good shepherd, and we can also learn what not to do by looking at a bad shepherd. And so let's look through the first white word there. A hired hand will run. The hired hand, the bad shepherd, is going to protect himself when danger comes. His first instinct is me, myself, and I. You know, it's all about my wishes, my wants, my desires, my ideas, my opinions, and I'm going to get my right way. And either you do it my way or you don't have a spot in the group with me. And if there's a challenge, they'll only think about what's best for themselves versus what's best for anyone and everyone else. And so this bad shepherd will run. They'll protect themselves, and in doing so, that's like a positive action for them, but in doing so, they will, the next white word on there, he will abandon the sheep. So he's running away and effectively leaving the sheep abandoned, vulnerable to attack. He's safe. The sheep are in danger. The sheep are going to suffer. The sheep will be isolated. The sheep will be discouraged. The sheep will be hungry. The sheep will be stuck on their back with no one to reach out and help them because the bad shepherd has been long gone. And why would a bad shepherd do this? Why would the bad shepherd protect himself and abandon the sheep? Jesus said they do this because the sheep don't belong to him. Belonging. This idea of ownership is really important. We talk about it in church world, maybe in business and other instances. Like we want people to be bought in. You've heard of that? Or like sold out for the mission. To be sold out for what God is doing here. Because with ownership comes responsibility. You know, you've ever rented an Airbnb at the beach for a week? You go down and you have a great time and you take care of the house, right? And you clean the house. And then you leave and you forget that you were ever there. But there's something different when you're the owner of that house. You know every nook and cranny and you care about the cleanliness and the repair of that house a lot more than someone who's just shows up for a week and has a good time and leaves, right? That's what we're talking about, ownership. And we have to willingly take ownership of the vision. Like I can volunteer you for the vision. I can give you lists of people to connect with. I can give you phone numbers. I can give you gift cards to your favorite coffee place. I could set you up for success. But if we don't willingly invest ourselves into the vision, then we're missing the point. We got to own it. We got to own this. And so like this is in every aspect of the vision, even the vision itself. We have to own the vision itself. We have to not only do the task of caring for people, but what if we owned the fact that, hey, I'm going to help 5 other people meet with other people. Like that's inception of the vision right there. That's next level. And so, for example, like if you're serving in kids ministry, that's great. But we need someone to own kids ministry, to oversee it, to manage it, to get people to join in. With all our ministries, with the greeter team, right? It's not just the task of showing up to greet people. That's great, but we need people to own the ministry of greeting, of inviting people to come onto the team and buy into the vision, to catch the vision. And then, of course, we just need people to just own the vision, as I talked about. So ownership is a big deal. They don't belong to him. That's one of the reasons. And he isn't their shepherd. This one's tough. Because a bad shepherd hasn't willingly chosen to be here to care for the sheep that's been entrusted to them. Now, they might functionally be in that position, but their heart isn't in the right place. You know, they have the shepherd staff. They're wearing the shepherd funny hat. They're dressed in shepherd's clothing. They might even have the key to the pasture that lets people in and out. There's a flock of sheep in and out. They got all that stuff, but they're not really shepherding the sheep. They're just pretending or going through the motions. And so when a wolf attacks, and as we talked about last week, the devil is prowling around like a roaring lion looking to whom to devour. The attacks are coming. So when the attacks come, well, what happens? Jesus gives us a summary. He says, well, the hired hand, the bad shepherd, runs because he's only working for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. Now, Jesus is not saying that every bad shepherd is only in for the money. That's not what he's saying. He's using this as an analogy, as a metaphor for the heart of a leader, a heart of a shepherd, a heart of someone who cares for the sheep. He's just saying simply they don't care. And some people, unfortunately, just don't care at all, do they? We talked about that last week. People just come up with reasons not to care. They justify it in their heart that they're doing the right thing by not caring for somebody because, well, they believe something strange, or they act strange, or they think strange, or they live in a weird place. I mean, we come up as human beings with all sorts of reasons that justify why we don't care. But Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep, and they know me. Knowing sheep, knowing your sheep is such an important aspect of being a shepherd, and your sheep knowing you. And again, a bad shepherd, none of this happens. We talked about how we got to know people's families. We got to know their occupation. We got to know their recreation. We got to know their method of contact. That's your FORM acronym, F-O-R-M. You got to know all that stuff. You got to know their names. But a step further than that is they have to know you, like the real you, not the fake you or not the one that smiles all the time, the you behind the surface smile. What's really going on in your world, behind the mask, behind the good intentions, just you. They got to know you. And if you can connect with somebody on that level, then, hey, then you're good. But if you can't, and nobody really knows who you are, then the sheep are connecting with an imposter. Someone who might be wearing shepherd's clothes, who looks like a shepherd, but who really isn't a shepherd. And so if we want to know what a shepherd looks like, we have to look to Jesus. He is the good shepherd. He is the great shepherd. He is the real shepherd. And one of the things that he says is, I am the good shepherd, Jesus said. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. This is the key. The key to life, the key to following Jesus. Remember, Jesus would say this. He was challenged, like, what is the most important thing to life? And he said what? He said, number one, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And then he added a second one, which was like, whoa, love your neighbor as yourself. Just do that, and you'll be good. But then before Jesus died and rose again, right near the end of his life here on earth, he boiled those two down to just one thing. If you forget everything, there's just one thing. Some people call it the platinum rule. The other ones are, important, the greatest commandments. This is like the platinum commandment. It's to love one another. And then there's the definition. What does it mean to do that? How do you define love? And Jesus says, as I have loved you. Love one another as I have loved you. So Jesus just got done washing the disciples' feet, serving them, taking the position of a servant and doing all of that servant work. And then he says, go and do the same for the people in your life. Care for them, serve them, just like I served you. And they couldn't even comprehend. As amazing, as incredible as that act of service was, they couldn't even comprehend in just a few short hours, the good shepherd, the great servant, would be literally dying for those people in that room as a way of showing this is what it means to love like I have loved you. A good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. A good shepherd doesn't budge when attacks come, when chaos comes into a group of people, onto your team, into a group at church, in a company. The shepherd stands their ground. He doesn't leave them. He leans in. He does whatever is possible to make the group stronger, the team stronger, to make it better. He draws closer when it gets hard rather than pulling away. And this whole section in John chapter 10 is helping the religious people, the Pharisees, the ones that were supposedly right. They were following God in all the ways, who thought of themselves as leaders, as shepherds, and Jesus was telling them, sirs, you are just hired hands. You aren't really a shepherd. You're just pretending. Jesus said, I'm the gate. The shepherd lays his life at the gate. You got to go through the gate to get into the fold. You had to go through Jesus, not the religious establishment, not the temple, through Jesus. This is a whole thing. And Jesus is explaining, the Father loves me because I sacrificed my life so I may take it back again. No one can take my life from me. I sacrifice it voluntarily. There's a good word for our series, voluntarily. For I have the authority to lay it down when I want to and also to take it up again. For this is what my Father has commanded. Right? Jesus sacrifices his life willingly. He follows what the Father commanded willingly. And we have to follow that example, to lay our life down for others like Jesus did for us, to die to ourselves. Paul says to live as living sacrifices to the glory of God and to the service of people. And we got to do this. This is the hard part, with everyone. I have other sheep, Jesus goes on to say. He's like, if I've already haven't offended you enough, Mr. Religious person, I've got other sheep that you don't even know about, that are not even a part of what you think is right and good, and I must bring them also. They'll listen to my voice, not your voice, and there will be one flock with one shepherd. Jesus inviting every person into the sheepfold. Now, specifically what Jesus is talking about with the Pharisees is, well, the Pharisees were all Jewish, and God seemed to have something special for the Jewish people, and Jesus was introducing, no, we're going to be inviting the Gentiles, everybody who's not Jewish, into a right relationship with God, into the sheepfold. And the Jewish religious leaders were not ready to hear that. It took them a long time for them to understand what God was doing there. But church, we've done an incredible job at being a church like this, of inviting people who are not normally involved in church, involved in the sheepfold, to come and be a part of what God is doing here. Inviting people from the highways and the byways so everyone can be a part of it. And we just uniquely believe everyone can be a part of what God is doing here. Everyone can be a part of a team. Everyone can be a part of a group. Everyone can come and be developed by some leaders, by the environment, but ultimately by the Holy Spirit. Because I believe that the grace of God is stronger than anything anyone walks through those doors with. I believe the Holy Spirit can transform someone's life no matter who they are or what they have done or what they're bringing in. I believe that for anyone who comes through our doors. I also believe that for anyone that I meet in my life, that the Holy Spirit can work in their life, can change their life, can transform their life. I believe that no matter what. And I invite you to join me on that belief. I know many of you do. So again, this whole message is built on a response. What are you going to do? Are you going to be a good shepherd, or are you going to be a bad shepherd? Because a bad shepherd, this is Jesus' analogy at the beginning of John 10 if you want to follow along. A bad shepherd sneaks over the wall. The bad shepherd is sneaky. They're not going through the gate. Remember, the gate is Jesus. We got to follow his example. We got to follow what he says is right and true. A bad shepherd just does his own thing, sneaks in. There's a lot of sneaky people in our world today. Just some examples that come to mind could be if you're in the position of a shepherd and you just give like the stock answer. You know, this is what you're supposed to say as a shepherd. Just kind of take the easy route, the sneaky route. Or sometimes it's a really strong answer, a really strong statement, and you're up here saying, I know what's right, and I'm the best at this, and I've got the best way to do this, and if you just do it my way, it'll work. And it's like, have you ever done that before? No, but I'm going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Sneaky. Or like someone who protects themselves. You know, everything's kind of going not so great, but it's like, as long as I'm okay, we're fine. Someone who's not qualified ultimately in the end. Sneaky. Maybe they're not even called by God. There's a special kind of calling, especially when you get into the church leadership stance. It's just not anyone or everyone can just, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do this. Like there's something about God calling somebody, and if there's not a real call on your life, it's a sneaky way of ending up somewhere where you aren't supposed to be. A bad shepherd sneaks over the wall. A bad shepherd also is a robber and a thief. You know, you can't walk in the front door. You're going to climb on the roof and hope a window is open and jump in that way. A robber might like to cause a fight or take something over here and, divide and split something. Maybe they're in there to get them whatever for themselves, pursuing personal goals and not what's best for the flock as a whole. A bad shepherd sneaks over the wall. A bad shepherd could be a robber or a thief, and a bad shepherd is too far away. The sheep just don't know them. They don't know the voice of the shepherd. The shepherd doesn't know how to speak their language. The shepherd might be saying words, but the sheep don't understand. The shepherd doesn't really want to get close, doesn't want to connect, and the sheep can't really do anything about it. So a bad shepherd sneaks over the wall. A robber and a thief is too far away, but a good shepherd is close enough to lead the sheep. This good shepherd is close enough to the sheep so that the sheep want to listen. They know the voice of the shepherd. They know what the shepherd means when the shepherd says something. They want to say yes. They want to get involved. They want to, be involved in what the shepherd's doing. They know how to connect with the sheep, know how to talk like the sheep, know how to, interact with the sheep. They're close enough to lead the sheep. A good shepherd is known and trusted. The sheep know their shepherd. There's a familiarity. There's a trust because they realize the shepherd's real. The shepherd's authentic. It's not just a job that someone's paying the shepherd to do, like it's really who they are. It's just genuinely at the core of who they are. It's just, wow, they just care. They just love. And this example of what does this look like practically? It could be like somebody who really listens to questions. Like really is a good listener. It's a good thing. Not just trying to shoot your answer right away, but just take it in, listen to what's happening. A good shepherd loves fellowship. Like it's not all about action and all about doing this and doing those tasks. It's just like, hey, let's just get together. Because why? Because I just want to be with you. Because I love you, or I like spending time with you. There's a fellowship aspect of that. A good shepherd serves one another. A good shepherd works with other people and serves people together. A good shepherd pursues godliness over selfishness. What's best for God, what's best for what God is doing versus what's best for self. A good shepherd is close enough to lead the flock. A good shepherd is known and trusted, and a good shepherd leads by example. Jesus said a good shepherd walks ahead of the sheep. He's showing them where to go. He's showing them how to work, not driving them from behind. And so as we give our offering today, and as we move our little sheep things, I want us to reflect on this, all right? Are we a good shepherd? Are we a bad shepherd? How can we be a good shepherd? And here's a summary statement I want us to focus on. He says the thief's purpose, or the bad shepherd's purpose, is to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus said, my purpose, everyone say my purpose, is to give them a rich and satisfying life. We have a contrasting variables here. So here are the sheep. And you may take these sheep home with you after the service is over if you would like, if it would be meaningful to you. If not, I understand. They are sheep after all. So in just a minute, I want to invite you to come and stand. A song will play, and I invite you to sing to the song, but I want us to think about this. I want you to grab a sheep from whatever rung of the ladder you would like and move it up, level it up, one rung or two rung, that's up to you, and that represents you. And you want to be a good shepherd, right? It's about your heart. It's about your purpose. A bad shepherd is there to steal. So when we look up, we level up, but then we're also going to grab someone a little lower, and we're going to move them up. But a bad shepherd is like, what can I take from this little meager sheep from the bottom? How can I take advantage of them? How can I step on them while I get to my position where I want to go? A bad shepherd is about taking what they can for their own gain. A bad shepherd wants to kill the dreams of those below them, to stamp out their desires and wishes and wants, to just say, hey, I'm going to do whatever I can do to climb up, and I'm going to destroy you on my way. But a good shepherd, one whose heart, whose purpose is to give the ones who are coming after us a what? A rich and satisfying life. That's very different. Very different. We want to give some fresh water to somebody who's in need. We want to be a life-giving spirit, not somebody who, again, stamps the fire out of people, but who can bring others along, who invests in others, and who helps them also climb up, who is a life-giving spirit. And so let's stand, let's turn the lights off, let's turn the music on, bring your offering, sing along, find the sheep, move them up the ladder. So come on up and do that. I belong here. Do you believe that? I am calling each and every one of you to a leveled up position. And I want you to know that you belong there. And don't let yourself tell yourself you don't. Because of what you've done, or because of what I am, or because you belong here. And don't let anyone else say you don't. You belong here. You belong right here. And it's not because of you. It's not because of your skills or your position or whatever. It's because of what Jesus has done for you. He is ultimately the one that says, you belong here. So we got to believe it. We belong.